You know that moment when you find yourself telling your partner to put on a jacket because it's cold outside? Or when you're reminding them for the third time to schedule that dentist appointment? Or maybe you're organizing their entire week for them, meal prepping their lunches, or constantly asking, "Did you remember to?" And then you stop and think, wait a second, when did I become their parent? Here's the thing though, you're not alone. So many people slip into this pattern without even realizing it. One day you're equals in love, and the next you're managing their life like they're a teenager who can't handle their own responsibilities. Think back to your childhood for a moment. The relationships you witnessed growing up became your blueprint for love. If you saw one parent taking care of everything while the other was more passive, that dynamic got filed away in your brain as, this is what relationships look like. We tend to recreate what we know, even when what we know wasn't actually healthy. If you grew up in a home where love meant someone managing your life, checking up on you, or controlling your choices, you might unconsciously believe that's what caring looks like in adult relationships too. Sometimes people who were parentified as children, meaning they had to take care of their own parents or siblings when they were young, carry that role into adulthood. Taking care of others became their way of feeling valuable, needed, and loved. So when they enter a romantic relationship, they automatically slip into caretaker mode because that's the only way they know how to express love. Here's something most people don't realize. Parenting your partner often has less to do with them and more to do with you. When you're anxious or stressed about life, focusing on your partner's problems can feel like relief. Think about it. Instead of sitting with your own uncomfortable feelings about your job, your health, your future, or whatever's really bothering you, you can channel all that energy into fixing your partner. Did they eat today? Did they finish that project? Are they taking care of themselves? Suddenly, you're so busy managing their life that you don't have time to deal with your own messy emotions. It's a distraction disguised as love. You get to feel productive and helpful while avoiding the harder work of looking at yourself. Plus, fixing someone else's problems feels way more manageable than fixing your own. Let's talk about control for a minute. When you parent your partner, you might think you're just being helpful, but underneath, there's often a need to control outcomes. If you can control what they eat, when they sleep, how they spend their money, or what decisions they make, then you can prevent bad things from happening. You can protect them. You can protect yourself. You can keep the relationship safe. Except you can't, really. Life doesn't work that way. This controlling behavior usually comes from a place of deep fear. Maybe you're afraid of being abandoned, so you try to make yourself indispensable. Maybe you're afraid of instability, so you try to create order by managing everything. Maybe you're afraid your partner will make choices you disagree with, so you try to steer them in the right direction. The paradox is that the more you try to control your partner like a parent controls a child, the more you push them away. People don't fall in love to be managed. They fall in love to be seen, accepted, and respected as equals. Some people build their entire sense of self around being needed. They're the fixers, the helpers, the ones who swoop in and save the day. And while there's nothing wrong with being caring and supportive, when your entire identity depends on someone else needing you, that's a problem. If you grew up believing that your worth came from what you could do for others, romantic relationships become another place to prove your value. You look for partners who need saving, who need organizing, who need guidance. And if your partner starts becoming more independent or capable, it can actually feel threatening to you. Because if they don't need you anymore, who are you? If you're not solving their problems, what's your role? This is why some people unconsciously keep their partners dependent. Not because they're bad people, but because they've tied their self-worth to being the caretaker. Every relationship has some give and take, some moments where one person leans more on the other. But when parenting becomes the default dynamic, you create a fundamental inequality. One person is the competent adult, the other is the one who needs managing. One person makes the decisions, the other follows along. One person knows better, the other doesn't. This inequality kills attraction over time. Think about it. You can't see your partner as both your equal and your responsibility. You can't desire someone you're mothering or fathering. The romantic and sexual energy between two people requires a sense of mutual respect, independence, and equal standing. When you're constantly in parent mode, you start to resent your partner for being incompetent or irresponsible, even if you're the one who created that dynamic. And your partner starts to resent you for being controlling or critical, even if they initially liked being taken care of. Nobody wins. Here's a question worth asking yourself. Did your partner actually ask you to manage their life? Or did you just assume they needed you to? A lot of parenting behavior in relationships happens without consent. Your partner didn't say, "Please organize my schedule and remind me about everything," but you started doing it anyway. Maybe because you thought you were helping. Maybe because their way of doing things made you anxious. Maybe because you didn't trust them to handle it themselves. But here's the reality. Adults get to make their own choices, even bad ones. If your partner wants to stay up late, eat junk food, spend money on things you think are frivolous, or forget to call their mom on her birthday, those are their choices to make and their consequences to face. When you step in and take over, you rob them of the opportunity to learn, grow, and be responsible for their own life. You're essentially sending the message that you don't believe they're capable. And most people don't respond well to that message. Sometimes we parent our partners because it keeps us in a position of power, and power feels safer than vulnerability. When you're the one in charge, the one who has it all together, the one who's taking care of everything, you don't have to admit that you have needs too. You don't have to ask for help. You don't have to show your partner the parts of you that feel weak, or scared, or overwhelmed. Being the parent in the relationship is a shield. It protects you from being seen as needy or dependent yourself. But relationships require vulnerability from both people. They require you to sometimes be the one who needs support, who doesn't have all the answers, who asks for care. If you're always in caretaker mode, you never let your partner take care of you. And that means they never get to fully love you, because love is reciprocal. It flows both ways. Let's get real about what happens when this dynamic takes over. First, you become exhausted. Managing another adult's life on top of your own is draining. You end up doing the mental and emotional labor for two people, and then you resent your partner for not appreciating everything you do, even though they never asked you to do it in the first place. Second, your partner stops growing. Why would they develop skills, take responsibility, or step up when you're always there to do it for them? You're actually enabling the exact behavior you're frustrated by. Third, the passion dies. You can't sustain romantic and sexual attraction when the dynamic feels more like parent and child than two equal adults. The energy shifts. Instead of desire, there's duty. Instead of excitement, there's obligation. Fourth, you both lose yourselves. You lose yourself in the role of caretaker, and they lose themselves in the role of the one being taken care of. Neither of you is showing up as your full, authentic self anymore. So how do you stop parenting your partner? The first step is recognizing that you're doing it. Pay attention to your language. Are you using words like let, allow, or make sure they when talking about your partner? Those are parent words, not partner words. Notice when you're stepping in to fix, manage, or control. Ask yourself, did they ask for this help? Is this actually my responsibility? What am I avoiding in my own life by focusing on theirs? The second step is learning to tolerate discomfort. Your partner might make choices you don't agree with. They might do things differently than you would. They might fail at something, and you have to let them. Their life is theirs to live, and their mistakes are theirs to make. This doesn't mean you can't have boundaries. If your partner's choices are genuinely affecting you, like if they're not paying their share of bills, or their behavior is hurting the relationship, you can address that. but you address it as an equal expressing needs and concerns, not as a parent disciplining a child. The third step is working on yourself. Why do you need to be needed? Where does your anxiety about control come from? What are you avoiding by focusing on your partner? These are hard questions, but they're important. Sometimes the parenting dynamic is covering up deeper issues that you need to address, whether that's your own insecurity, unresolved trauma from childhood, or difficulty sitting with uncertainty. The fourth step is rebuilding equality. Start treating your partner as capable, even if they haven't always shown up that way. Stop doing things for them that they can do for themselves. Invite them to step up and take responsibility for their own life. And here's the hard part. When they drop the ball, which they might, you let them face the natural consequences instead of swooping in to save them. Adults learn by experiencing the results of their choices. Think about the kind of relationship you truly want to be in. Do you want to be with someone you have to manage, or someone who's your equal? Do you want to feel like a caretaker or like a partner? Most people, when they're honest with themselves, want a partnership. They want someone who can stand beside them, not someone they have to carry. They want mutual respect, shared responsibility, and the freedom to just be lovers instead of parent and child. The beautiful thing about relationships between two whole, independent adults is that you get to choose each other every day, not because one person needs the other to survive, but because you genuinely want to be together. You get to support each other without losing yourselves in the process. You get to care for each other without creating dependency. You get to love each other as equals, with all the respect, attraction, and genuine intimacy that comes with that. But getting there requires you to put down the parenting role and trust that your partner is capable of managing their own life. It requires you to focus on your own growth instead of trying to control theirs. It requires vulnerability, honesty, and the willingness to let the relationship evolve into something healthier. The question is, are you ready to stop being a parent and start being a partner? Because your relationship is waiting for you on the other side of that choice. You get to love each other as equals, with all the respect, attraction, and genuine intimacy that comes with that. But getting there requires you to put down the parenting role and trust that your partner is capable of managing their own life. It requires you to focus on your own growth instead of trying to control theirs. It requires vulnerability, honesty, and the willingness to let the relationship evolve into something healthier. The question is, are you ready to stop being a parent and start being a partner? Because your relationship is waiting for you on the other side of that choice.